Hi, everybody, and welcome. It'll be a couple of minutes while everybody filters in from the waiting room. Thank you all for joining us today. Um, if you have questions that you didn't enter when you registered, go ahead and drop those in the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. Okay, and that looks like everybody's in from the waiting room. So hi. My name is Billy. I am the founder and organizer of Bookstore Romance Day, and we're here to talk about why Joe Fox is the worst and You've Got Mail is not a rom-com despite popular opinion. Welcome, everyone, and welcome especially to our panelists, Olivia Waite and Allie Parker. And that is all you're going to hear from me until the end, but I will be in the chat dropping links. So I'm going to turn this over to Olivia and Allie.
All right.
Exciting.
Hi, Allie, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
Do you want to start, or can I make a big fancy case for a theory that I have?
Please
Okay.
go right ahead.
And you have book selling experience too, yes?
No, I don't, but
No, just romance
love books.
expertise.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. We need the romance experts now more than ever. Do you want to do a little intro for people who aren't familiar?
Sure. So I'm Allie Parker. I run a podcast called Romance Ever After, where I talk to different people from the romance communities about movies, specifically romantic comedies, and some movies that people think are romantic comedies, but really aren't. And we just kind of delve into those movies and we talk about them and talk about our memories and why we love romance. And that's me. On to you, Olivia.
Thanks, Allie. My name's Olivia Waite, and I write queer historical romance, science fiction, fantasy, and essays. I'm the romance fiction columnist at the New York Times Book Review. And I've been writing romance professionally for about, oh my God, 15 years. And for 10 years before that, I was a bookseller in independent bookstores all around Washington State. And so You've Got Mail, like, speaks very deeply to something in a way that makes me want to punch the speaking very deeply in the face. To prepare for this, I started rewatching the movie because it'd been a while. And I hit the scene in the boats, and a whole new world opened up for me. So last summer, the trans writer Jude Doyle did a whole series of essays on the other 90s movie genre, the erotic thriller. And he made a whole spreadsheet of things that all of these, like, Indecent Proposal and Basic Instinct and Disclosure and Swim Fan and Single White Female, this whole rash of like, why is sex so scary movies that came out around the same time as You've Got Mail. And the spreadsheet of sin was what this was called. And it's like, Demi Moore is in it and Michael Douglas is in it and like this whole thing. And I went back and looked at it because one of the things that I remembered that stuck out was that one of the things on this erotic thriller checkbox was boats. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's it. You've Got Mail isn't a romantic comedy, it's an erotic thriller." It's in fact about the anxiety of women in the workplace and what happens when sex and money overlap and suddenly not only do you have an explanation for why Joe Fox is a villain, he is because he's in an erotic thriller. He's a terrifying predator who's out to destroy the heroine's life. Even though erotic thrillers usually focus on like a single heterosexual man, according to Jude Doyle, a single heterosexual man who watches his relationship get destroyed by terrifying female sexuality or queer people or kink or cocaine or any of the above. And like suddenly when you're rewatching, there's this undertone of violence in the movie that becomes like really palpable. So the idea that when the movie begins, we've got these two characters who are already kind of cheating on their significant others. And why is that romantic and cute? And we've got like the moment where she's like holding the knife and like, Greg Kinnear takes it away from her. There's the weird General Franco mentions. There's the time where she thinks maybe he stood her up because he got arrested for being a killer. Like, there's the stepmom who's coming on to Joe Fox, who then runs off with the nanny. There's Greg Kinnear eventually like flirting on television with this woman he hooks up with, who then, of course, like that's just straight out of Basic Instinct. Every couple in this movie apparently met at their workplace. It's just like it's bizarre. It's absolutely like there's this deeply sinister, anxious undertone. And if you all you'd have to do to make this an erotic thriller is just change the soundtrack. That is it.
That is a very great theory. I've never thought about it as an erotic thriller, but in that framing, that does make Joe Fox, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, so in what was it about the boats that like really made it hook up for you? Was it just the list or was
Yeah, it was just because that was a thing that I had not that I would not have expected the erotic thrillers to all have kind of in common. And so it stuck out in my memory. And then when I saw the boat scene, I'm like, "Oh my God, why isn't You've Got Mail an erotic thriller?" And like it checks more of the boxes than The Talented Mr. Ripley.
True. Okay. All right. I do see that. So for me, I wouldn't necessarily wager that it is an erotic thriller. I would wager more so that it's a comedy. It's just not a romantic comedy.
Mhm.
Because Nora Roberts, Nora Ephron, in my opinion, she has this wonderful whip sense of humor. It's very
Mhm.
funny. Everything she writes is very funny. It's very snappy, but her sense of romance is very skewered. Like you can see that even in When Harry Met Sally, she basically had to be forced to make it a happy ending because Rob wanted her happy ending for the couple.
Mhm.
She finds more fun in the animosity between people
Yeah.
than necessarily like the joining and bringing of together of people. And so that's like when she does the scene at the party where they meet in person for the first time properly.
Mhm.
And she's with that caviar, it's a garnish and all that.
Yes.
Like it's so wonderfully thought out because Nora, I can't remember if this was Nora's first time directing, but this was like one of her very big directing projects. And like
Yeah.
she went massively over budget because she's this woman with this major vision. And she put so much money and thought and time into this ridiculous, like 5-minute scene that it leaves such an impression on people. But that like animosity, you can
Yeah.
see she has so much fun writing that. And she loves writing these like very neurotic 90s prototype white people that like
Mhm.
it's beautiful on the screen and it makes so much sense and people connect with that because it's so fun and so visceral. But I don't necessarily see like the romance of it like really sticks. Like it's like she's forced to hit these romantic beats in the story that don't
Mhm.
truly connect with the rest of like where she's having the most fun in the plot for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. It's like it's a deeply cynical view on relationships. Like all of the
Yeah.
other relationships are either failures because everybody's terrible, or even the ones that are kind of successes are successes because they're sad or self-destructive or toxic in some way. Like,
Hmm.
great, the stepmom runs off with the nanny and presumably they're happy, but also how can they be happy? They're terrible. Like
And that's like his father's like what, third? Or his
third or
grandfather's like
fourth or
third or fourth marriage.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So like I mean like that is consistently happening in the background to every other relationship
yeah,
in the movie. Like, why should I think these two are gonna work out? When again, like you say, they start basically cheating at the
yeah.
beginning of
And like if it wasn't Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, we wouldn't even like this would have been just a dismal failure because everybody would have seen the hollowness of it. But because you have this kind of like preternaturally uh relatable couple, um, it's just
that we
really easy. Like you
that
can see how the machinery functions as designed, even though like you can spot the flaws. Like for me, I still get that big swoop at the end of this emotionally. It works for me. And I think mostly because I imprinted too hard on Tom Hanks as a kid. Like between A
I
League of
I
Their
feel
Own and Apollo 13, I'm like, yeah.
I think like it feels for me like it was a way for people to get the full HEA that they were promised at the end of Sleepless in Seattle.
Yes, I think that's true. We've been waiting for 2 movies worth for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so then you get
what's the
that.
timeline on Joe versus the volcano? Is that made after this one?
Oh no, that one,
That
I'm
was
sure
way
Billy knows.
before.
But it was, yeah, it was way before. I think Joe versus Volcano came out in, I want to say like 89.
89.
Mm.
Yeah.
See, yeah, that's my favorite of the three, hands down. It's a
Yeah.
goofy movie,
It's a
but
very goofy
it
movie.
is.
I mean, John Patrick Shanley, okay, you want to talk about somebody who has an understanding of romance, but like he buries it in layers of
Yeah.
absurdity that it
Yeah.
that doesn't always connect with everybody, but like at least he like has a sense of like people falling in love and it being like such a
It's
viscerally
sincere.
impactful, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's because this movie it is a very slick package. Like, and even all of the all of the furniture drives you toward this ending, and
hmm
you can see how you're supposed to you're kind of designed to conclude that this is a right and good ending. Like,
hmm
and then there's that baffling bit where she walks into a Fox Books at the end finally, and and it's, it looks like a mall. It's completely ordinary and very boring.
and bright and like
And the chrome
everything's
handrail.
huge and everything's like so separated. It's not as
Yeah.
cozy. Yeah.
No, it's not a romantic space like at all, but the soundtrack is like playing this wonderful, like transported to a magical land riff. And I'm like, this is the
Yeah.
most corporate thing I've ever seen. What are we doing?
It felt like a way for Nora to explore how New York was changing for her at that time and
Hmm.
not necessarily like actually like try and right a wrong or try and like find some happily ever after, but just like her making peace with what was happening to smaller bookstores around New York, because like this is at the
Yeah.
height of like Barnes and Noble's like great
Yeah.
rise, where they were just like ripping apart the independent bookstore scene right and left.
Yeah. It
They
was a
used to be
brutal
the great
time.
bad guy.
Yeah. No, it was really like I lived through that, and I started working in bookstores right around the time that Amazon was founded. And so like the college bookstores and the small local bookstores that I was in, my first post-college job was in Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park, Washington, and they were a small chain. They have 3 stores now. They had 2 stores then. Um, and they're all like local to the Seattle area. They were founded specifically as a way of engaging with the community while still like, turning a profit and being an existing business. But watching the way that so many people struggled so hard to make this space public and welcoming and community oriented, and then to see this absolute behemoth come along and just start knocking heads left and right was,
hmm
and it felt for a while there, and then with the rise of Amazon and everything that happened after, like it's a little easier to root for Barnes and Noble these days just because they're print as opposed to like say the Bezos Leviathan.
Yeah.
But but at the time it was really, it felt like every time we got a tool that made things a little bit better, either Barnes and Noble or Amazon would actually buy it out from under us. Like Amazon bought Goodreads and they bought Book Depository and they bought Alibris and they, or is it Abe Books?
hmm
It's Abe Books, right?
A-books, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and it just became, it started to really feel like the world was just arrayed against you.
hmm and I think that's like why the bookstore closing, the sadness of it like
Yeah.
hurts a lot of people, because I mean, and at the end, like a lot of people try to make the case that, she really didn't like running the bookstore. She was just doing it to save her mother's memory. But that isn't, I don't think it's pushed as hard enough.
No,
Like,
like we need to hear what she'd rather be doing. There's a whole, like, it's definitely a subtle thread in there, but it's not
mhm.
explicit enough to
No,
land.
and even at the end, she's just kind of like foisted into the idea of doing something else, of writing a book. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
and I'm
really
like,
like,
what are you doing for rent right now?
you had to shut down your bookstore, and I know you didn't own the property,
Hmm.
so you didn't sell off the property to make something to keep you a nest egg or anything, but that's the Nora Ephron world that she builds. Like
Yeah.
nobody worries about finances unless they're worrying about finances.
Yeah. Oh my God. It just wigs me out every time though. I know so many
Yeah.
people who would quit their day job tomorrow if like if they had a little bit of a nest egg to start something new on, to take a run up at something.
Hmm.
And it's just maybe we just don't live in that world anymore. But
But yeah, I think what really just takes the romance out of that movie for me really is when she's walking around her closed bookstore and it's so solitary and
mhm.
alone. And I think she's already broken up with her boyfriend at this point, and
Yeah.
like she's just by herself and alone, and it's like at Christmas time of all
Yeah.
times, and it's
And she has
just
that vision of herself, her younger self and her mom like dancing in this ghostly way and it's just it's brutal. It's like there's no fixing this. And then she's gonna
yeah.
go and fall for the man who did it because why not? It feels like, you know how in Die Hard when the entire point of Die Hard is to destroy Holly Gennaro's job so she'll have to go back to cop John McClane. Like she's doing so well. She's working at this fancy company. She's like being promoted by her boss. She's valued as an employee. She's making good money, but no, she's making more money than her husband. So we have to destroy the entire corporation and building and maybe also shoot her boss in the head so that now she has no choice but to get back together with her husband. This feels like that. Like
Mm,
she's not allowed to have anything because otherwise like what use is he?
hmm. And I think it would have like felt maybe like something if they had if there had been like some sort of offer to buy her out
Hmm.
of her store, like from somebody or something. And like, we're going to preserve your mother's memory in some fashion. It's just not going to be in this space. But it's the
Yeah.
fact that she gives up the thing that's been her entire life. And we're
Yeah.
just supposed to imagine like she's okay and she's going to figure it out somehow.
And it's like, I mean, the children's book editor job is a good idea. She seems very equipped for that. All the sale, like she knows the industry, she knows the market, but she doesn't end up doing that. She goes, I guess maybe I'll be writing. And I'm like, no, like you could, what if you did the writing while also doing the editing? Like,
Hmm. Yeah, if it seemed enthusiastic about that suggestion in any way, shape, or form,
yeah,
except she felt seems ambivalent about that, and seems ambivalent about writing a book. She just seems ambivalent about everything except for getting with the guy who basically destroyed her mother's legacy.
yeah, yeah. And you notice how she talks a lot about her mom and he talks a lot about his dad. But he never talks about his mom and she never talks about her dad. This is like the weird family dynamics are bonkers. Like,
Especially at the beginning of the movie where he has like that evil villain meeting with his dad and his granddad. Like,
yeah, yeah, like that. And his dad's like, oh, her mom was mwah. And I'm like, so are we supposed to like imagine them as siblings in an alternate universe or something? Because I don't think any of this. Again, erotic thriller territory. Like,
I mean, it's possible maybe at one point she and Delia were writing the script as a thriller and it just got too funny and it was like, let's pivot.
yeah, like I just keep thinking like there was just like kind of a sense of erotic thriller in the atmosphere. So if you're making a movie, like little erotic thriller particles get like attached to it because there was just so much.
Yeah. I think it's like just interesting to look at it as in frame with like what it was based off of. So it came from Shop Around the Corner, which
Yeah.
is I think it helps because those two are basically they're in the same space and they're on the same level.
Yeah.
And
It's an
like
entirely different power dynamic.
yes, there animosity between them, but like they're both competing for something as opposed to competing to destroy the other.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's not it's a rivalry, it's not scorched earth.
Yeah.
Like, there's a good business argument to be made that like what if Fox Books could subsidize her as like their children's department? They'd have more space for
Hmm.
adult fiction. They could like she would get the benefit of all the discounts that they're able to leverage. Plus, they would like be seen positively by the neighborhood and like, there's a
Like
synergistic approach.
let that be their children's books outpost.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think just in general, I mean, what from what we get, they were corporate villains and they were
Yeah.
happy being corporate villains.
And
And
they
they
never have to
never
change.
and they never changed and there was never any like sort of pivot to say, oh, we're going to provide this for the neighborhood or we're going to do this for the neighborhood
Hmm.
or, try and uplift whatever. Like there was never any attempt by Fox Books or Joe Fox to seem like a good person.
Yeah. Like he knows his doorman's name, but like you don't see him learning the names of, say, the flower vendors. He doesn't patronize the nut store. Like, that's maybe
Hmm.
my favorite line in the movie is George going, I'm gonna go to the nut store where it's fun. But yeah, like there's a brief sense of remorse when she yells at him. He doesn't like that somebody he likes doesn't like him, and that's about as deep as it gets with him.
Yeah.
Like,
And you never get the sense that he's ever going to change. He
yeah,
just she just figures out he is the person that she's been chatting with on on AIM. I am chat. Oh my God. God, that makes me feel so old.
no, right?
Um,
Like I heard the dial-up sounds and I'm like, oh God,
oh
withering
God,
into dust. Like,
flashback. I haven't heard that in forever. Yeah, but you like it never. The thing is, like, often when you have like these epistolary kinds of romances, you always get a sense like there's like a softer side or a more romantic side, or like some part of them that we're not getting in these
yeah,
conversations that aren't happening face to face. That, I mean, like, I think the closest we get with that is like that I would buy you a bouquet of pencils. Like,
yeah, which is super charming.
but we never see that come to fruition when they're face to face,
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, it's really unsettling at the end, like after she's lost her store and has nothing. And he sets up this very careful, like stage managed little dance where he hangs out with her in person and she kind of knows that he's into her, but he makes it like, oh, well, obviously you're into this other guy. Oh, we are tragic. Oh, we can never be. And I'm like, this is deeply manipulative behavior. Like and this is again where we get into erotic thriller territory, is that he's got this web of lies that he will never describe as lies because technically it's not saying anything untrue. He's just
Yeah.
hiding half of his personality, and we're supposed to feel like,
I think that's the thing though with romance. In general, especially when you're watching it, you're willing to forgive a lot if you get some kind of feeling of like this was worth it.
yeah,
And typically you get that in like the final moment where they like get together and you get the HEA. And I feel like the HEA for this is just so anticlimactic
yeah,
that the payoff of him lying to her and them lying to each other for like, 75% of the movie
hmm
just doesn't really make it worth it.
like, can you imagine her life going forward? Every time she chats with someone online, she's going to be thinking, is this really secretly Joe just fucking with me again? Like,
True.
and are they gonna both be nervous whenever the other one signs on? Because like, oh, that's how we met. Are they looking for someone else
Hmm.
now? Like,
Hmm.
where are they gonna
Is this
live? Is she gonna move into the boat or is he gonna move into her apartment? Because I don't see either one happening. Like, we can't even imagine them sharing a space.
Yeah, I think though, so I was just thinking is like I was thinking the idea of the boat is just to mostly make sense of like the iconic 90s bachelor, like nothing about their life is fixed. So
Yeah.
like even the place where he lives isn't fixed.
And
So
he and his
maybe,
dad have matching boats next to each other. Like,
which
oh
is
my God.
so sad. Him and
Yeah.
that 2 minute marriage, like all of a sudden now they're just living together in boats together. So like I'm thinking that like because he's committing to a woman on land, he's ready to like invest in New York real estate,
Yeah.
which,
You know,
is
this
a
just
major commitment.
this just occurred to me. Like, what happens to the kids when Dabney Coleman and his wife split up? Like, where do the kids live? Do they go off with like, the
I'm
scary
guessing go off with her and Nanny.
nanny? Well, that's probably best for all concerned because like I don't like them living on the boat with Dabney Coleman. That's weird.
Mm-mm. I mean, it's like I think that's pretty stereotypical of those kinds of movies for them, like the rich dad who has like the 2 minute marriage, the kids
Yeah.
always go off with the mom. So I don't even think she was even thinking about like where of course the mom's gonna take him, of course.
Yeah.
And she's gonna get a fabulous divorce settlement out of it.
Yeah, which is probably true, but also like, my God, those kids. Like at least Joe loves the kids. Like that's the one good thing. He seems to earnestly
Hmm.
love the kids. He has a great time. And again, that's just the Tom Hanks charm at work.
Hmm.
Like you put Tom Hanks on screen with some adorable plot moppets, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna all feel pretty good about that.
Well, yeah, again, this is why I think it's like the coda for Sleepless in Seattle because
Yeah.
we already had 2 hours of him being adorable with a child. Of
Yep.
course, we have to put him on screen with small children,
Yeah.
FOX.
We have to have him playing around, like, flashbacks to like I think there's one little nod to Big when he's riding the thing around, and it's like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
no. We have to generate all of this from previous movies because
In
there's
order
not
for
enough of it here.
no, no, which is sad because they could have literally written a little bit more humanity into it. But like with when it comes to the visual medium, a lot of times directors like to cheat and they do. They
Yeah,
do big
and
time. They rely on the charisma too much.
yep. What does he even do with the money? Like he doesn't put it into real estate. He doesn't have the big scary apartment. Is it all just going into the office rent? Like seriously, there's
Just
not even enough conspicuous consumption to justify it.
just the family of villains making money to make money is to make money.
Yeah. God, it's just bleak.
We've been going on for about like a half hour now. Or like, do we want to take some questions, Billy?
Yeah, I'd like that. Let's see. Do we have the spreadsheet around here?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
uh-oh.
Oh, you're kind of coming in and out.
Cutting out.
gonna
I think I have the spreadsheet
go
with those
over
questions. Let me see. I think I
to
have this.
the registrations added. Asked, do you think the movie got overs?
Billy, can we get you to maybe copy and paste the questions into the QA? Because you're cutting in and out and we're missing a lot of words here.
Okay, I'm gonna try doing that. That's what I'm gonna try doing. Let's see.
Mm-mm.
And I have to put them in the chat because I can't put them in the Q&A because I'm hosting.
Ah, okay. It's a Tara asked, do you think the movie got away with anything due to the actors? Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan had their own particular chemistry from other successful co-starring ventures, and they were like Hollywood darlings at that point. Do you think that helped sell it in large part or get people to overlook the problems? Oh, for sure.
Hands down, yeah.
I mean, Meg was the darling, you
Yeah.
know? She was relatable. She was the girl next door. She was everybody who everybody wanted to be friends with. And I mean,
And it
Tom
wasn't just
Hanks is,
Tom Hanks. I remember City of Angels. I remember like
mm-hmm.
the whole premise was, would you give up immortality if Meg Ryan was there and cute? And like Yeah, Nicolas Cage said absolutely thumbs up, and people were like, we can see it. Speaking of movies I will never forgive.
Yeah. I think the original of that, like, felt like the original ended a little bit more, a
It
little
did.
less wrecks your heart than
Yeah.
City of Angels. Like, I think
No,
I've
they end
watched
up
City of
together.
Angels.
The German one ends up happier than the American remake.
See, I love a good German movie. People think I'm crazy, but the Germans, they make good movies. It's not all experimental Brecht cinema. It's like a
No,
lot of
I do like Caligari a lot though. That's it's my favorite kind of horror. But yeah.
Uh, but yeah, Meg Ryan was adorable. Everybody loved her. Tom Hanks, everybody still loves him. I mean, come on. He's Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. Everybody wants to be friends with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. So
Yeah.
yeah, they could get away with being like Tom Hanks get away with being awful.
Yeah. And
He could
especially
get away
because
with
then there's a lot of people who are like, oh, Tom Hanks is way too goody goody. But if he's like a business predator, ooh, now he's edgy and people would find that interesting. And it's like, no, man, he's just a jerk. I think it would have played differently as well if you had somebody, no shade to Tom Hanks, but if you had somebody more handsome than Tom Hanks, I think we would have been
Mm.
more inclined to read him as a jerk.
Yeah, it would give a little bit too much American Psycho.
Yes, which would also have very much been on somebody's mind at the time.
Let's see. Okay, in capitalist society, how do you get the money foxes of the world to fall in love with your brand without losing your business to them? This is from Tiffany.
Wow. Um, if you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, how do you? Maybe, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, when people see things are working, the idea is just to imitate rather than adopt, you know?
And I think part of the problem with this movie is that it tries to have the argument about capitalism, but it doesn't actually show us any of the problems that come about. Like we have a brief mention of her student employee who's not going to be able to find another part-time job, and she just kind of vanishes, and that's presented
Hmm.
as like George ends up working for Fox Books, and that's okay. Um, but the student gal just kind of disappears, and we're not supposed to ask any questions about how she's doing, or is somebody helping out,
Hmm.
or is her schooling now in jeopardy? Um, there's all of those montages of all the cute small businesses opening, and it really feels sinister if you're like, okay, so how many of those are going to be open in 5 years? Like,
Yeah. I mean, it gets us to the point where now where it's like, what are the options? And there aren't any options
there aren't any.
because all
Every
the
downtown
options
is the
got,
same as every other downtown.
yeah, everything got eaten up.
Yep. Venture capital,
Oh.
private equity, even businesses that are perfectly fine and profitable.
Successful.
Like Joanne's was making money.
Hmm.
They just got gutted because they weren't making enough money fast enough, is what it comes down to,
Hmm. And then, I mean, we're in
to
a point
satisfy
where
an
now
arbitrary metric.
people are so focused on consumption that
Hmm.
um did I miss a question? Um oh yes, City of Angels was very, very, very
It
sad.
was it's a big bummer. Like, oh my gosh, like legendary bummer.
So sad. Okay, from Sloat. Is one of the major points of romance a happy ending? I always wanted to know that. Okay, so this is when we're talking about category romance books. Yes, happy endings are very, very important. When we're talking about romance movies en general, happy endings are not important. What's important is that it's focused on a couple finding each other, experiencing love. Whether or not they end together is subject to other people's opinions. However, in my opinion, when it comes to romantic comedies, period, we're talking about something that's a little bit more analogous to category romance books. People might argue or dispute with me and say like as long as it's funny and it's romance, it's romantic comedy, that's fine. But I think when we're talking about romantic comedies, especially like the heyday of romantic comedies, so we're talking like the 80s, the 90s, the early aughts, like what people were expecting were just to walk into a movie, just watch two people fall in love or watch some people fall in love and it's funny and they end up together. Like
Mhm.
that's what's most important in my opinion. Now when it comes to film, people will debate it all over the place, and say that, you know, romance is that's all that's important. But I think when we're talking about romantic comedies, I think it's really important for the people who fell in love on screen to stay together at the end of the movie.
And I think for me, I like to use the term love story, which for me doesn't come with that expectation of a happy ending. So like, because sometimes you do want to watch two people try to make it work and have it fall apart in interesting ways. That can be
Hmm.
very fun. But I think when you use the term romance, I think there's a goal you're driving toward that shapes how the story like is read when it's happening. Like if
Hmm.
you know, like that's I mean that's the big deal about say Romeo and Juliet. You say the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. And in case you missed the title, Shakespeare puts it in the prologue and he's like these kids end up dead. Let's find out how. And because knowing the ending, it's not about suspense. It's not about what's going to happen. It's about which decision are they going to make that's going to like lead them down this terrible path.
Exactly why it happened. And I think that's like also the appeal of category of
Yeah.
romance genre
And romantic
as
comedies
a
as well.
book. Yeah, because you want to, you know, these people are going to end up together. You just want to know how it happened. And that's the journey you go on any story.
Hmm.
If you're just reading or watching something just to know if things end up well or end up awful, like what you're missing the point. The story is the journey. It's getting to that point. It's
Yeah.
how you fulfill that promise of whatever the ending is, whether you know it or not, you know, whether it's a surprise or not, you go on a journey to get to there. And if you're ignoring that entire journey to get to that point, like I think you're missing out on the true experience.
Yeah. There's a classic Hitchcock definition of surprise versus suspense. So if you're watching a video, or if you're watching a film where two people are sitting at a table having a conversation and then boom, they blow up because there was a bomb under the table. That's a surprise, and that's less interesting. Suspense is first you show the audience the guy putting the bomb under the table, and then people come and sit and they have this conversation, and you're like biting your nails the whole time, going, when's the bomb going to go off? You're paying attention to the conversation, but you're also expecting. And so there's a tension there, and you need that anticipation. And I think the romantic happy ending, um, or the tragic one, if you signal the tragedy early enough, um, I think it provides a point of tension and then like stretching a string between two pegs and you can pluck it and it resonates. And
Hmm.
there's interesting stories to be told that are exploratory where you're like, let's just find out what happens. You can get some surreal ones, you can get some very interesting slice of life stories. But I think in terms of genre structures, you need that pivot point to be fixed.
Okay, from Joyce, we have, is the answer to whether it's a rom-com dependent on the generation of the person asked? What do you think?
I think rom-com is fuzzy on purpose. I think it's one of those like it's a constellation of traits rather than a hard and fast definition. And I think it's
Hmm.
that way to let more people like I mean even now you'll get people trying to argue that Gone with the Wind is a romance and like no, like I anyways, no. But you can see how it shares a lot of traits and it's been very formative. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of movies end up in the same, like romantic comedies end up in the same way. Like Romeo and Juliet is a huge influence on romance, even though Romeo and Juliet is not itself a romance. And I think that there's a lot of movies that have had a huge influence on rom-coms without actually being rom-coms themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I don't think it's dependent on the generation. I think in specific to this movie, I think it's more down to the sensibilities of the person. Like, what are you more focused on? Are you more focused on seeing these two people who are strangers who have developed this relationship meet and fall for each other in person, or are you taking in the whole world that's around them and everything that's going on? Like, what are you most invested in? And I think that's why there are people who just like really love that it's funny and the words move them. And Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks are adorable on screen together, even when they're yelling at each other about caviar.
Maybe
And
the most adorable then.
yeah, most adorable. And like, there are scenes when they're together that resonates with them in their own relationships. And that's why it just sticks to them as a rom-com, or, just maybe just their experience with other things. It's just like it checks enough boxes for them to
Yeah.
like say that it is. But I don't think it's dependent on generation. I think, there are people who feel particular ways and there are people who don't. And that's fine. That's fine. We can agree to disagree. There needs to be more of that.
Yeah, and I
I
think that
think.
there's a sense of things of like stories being comic as opposed to tragic, as opposed to stories being comedies because they have jokes. And there's not always a clear distinction between those things. Like the comic sensibility is the world's basically good, things are probably going to work out. We're just going to go through some stuff in between now and then. There's going to be shenanigans, but nobody's going to be like super miserable. Or if they are, we'll hustle them quickly off screen and never ask about them again.
Let's see. Okay. All right, so we've got one from an anonymous attendee. What would be a true rom-com in the 90s and today?
While you were sleeping.
Hmm. Okay. And that one, and I feel like that one gets controversial too because of the fact that they are really not on screen together until like the very
Yeah.
end. But that one, a lot of people really feel like very strongly is a true rom-com. What
Yeah.
about from today, or like from this part of the century, or from this century?
Honestly, the one I've seen most recently that I enjoyed was The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling. I thought he was A, having a great time. They had wonderful chemistry. Excuse me. And there's one scene, I mean, there's actually one scene where they're like split screen talking to one another, just like the old Doris Day Rock Hudsons.
Mhm.
But there's a different scene where so the basic premise for those who don't know is he was a stunt guy. They were like, she was a director. They were dating. He had an injury on set. They broke up. And now he thinks finally, like he's been in recovery, and now he thinks finally she's calling him back to set in Australia. And like, turns out no, she didn't. It's all a misunderstanding. But they end up having the conversation about their past breakup in public while filming a scene where he's supposed to be set on fire over and over. And so they're talking in ways that everyone around them is interpreting as about the scene we're filming right now. But in fact, they're confessing secrets that they never told each other about the breakup. And I'm like,
And then she
that's
just
it.
gets,
That's the
and then
rom-com
she,
with the doubled communication. Like,
and then she gets to light him on fire and throw him into a wall
yeah, several times. It's
several
delightful.
times over.
And of course, he ends up
Yeah.
crying in his car to Taylor Swift at one point, and there's a big emotional karaoke scene. Like
Hmm.
it's a good time,
And
and the
there's
stunts are
lots of
incredible.
there's lots of good montages too,
Yeah.
which I really love. So like for me, my quintessential 90s rom-com is The Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Oh, I haven't seen that
Which is
like
a
in
which
years.
yeah, which is another one about lying to people.
Yes. Yeah,
But
that
but but
one
you
that
could
stressed me out as a teen.
but you give it a pass because you have adorable people, and I feel like the promise of the romance is like it's really played up. It's
Mhm.
basically a Cyrano de Bergerac kind of retelling where it's this vet who gives advice to this. She's very 90s. She is a radio vet who gives advice.
Yeah.
And
Oh
he
my God.
calls into her show and he enjoys talking to her and he comes to thank her. And when she comes to thank her in person, he thinks that she looks like her neighbor, who is played by Uma Thurman. The lead is played by Janine Garofalo, and so she allows him to
The
think
opposite.
that Uma is her, and like she kind of goes along pretending to be her friend. And he's kind of caught between falling in love between the person he's talking to on the phone
Hmm.
and the person he sees in person. And there's this really great, really epically long phone conversation scene, which is just like, I think really resonated with me because, like, especially in the 90s and in the early aughts, like, you get on the phone and you just talk forever and ever and ever
Yeah.
with that person you just met. And, like, it's just like epically long phone conversation that ends in phone sex, which went over my head when I was 10 the first time I saw it. But I get it now. And it's just like it's really good. So like that's like kind of my quintessential 90s rom-com. And then a movie I really liked recently is Rye Lane, which is
Oh,
like this, it's this one day kind of just like this one day, one perfect day where this guy and girl they meet. He's crying in the bathroom at an art exhibit because he just got he's just like he's depressed because he recently got dumped by his girlfriend for one of his friends actually.
oh, that's all.
Um yeah, and they're both in the same friend group and she meets him and like they just kind of like have this one epic day together where they're like walking through the streets of London and Brixton and like they're getting to know each other and they're helping each other out with both of their exes and like
Sounds
it's really
beautiful.
like it's really dreamy and colorful and funny, and there's even a cameo from Colin Firth in it. Like it's really a perfect movie, and I think everybody should watch it.
I think that's
On
going on the
that.
list for me tonight. That sounds ideal.
Yeah,
It's called Rye
that's I think
Lane.
it's Rye Lane. Yeah, I think it's still
Okay.
on Hulu. But like rye, like bourbon and rye kind of
Yeah.
rye.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
the other 90s classic I always turn to in the winter is The Cutting Edge.
ah, yes,
Yeah, where
yes.
they do have a lot of screen time and they have a lot of interaction and a lot of rivalry and stress and they're very different people, but you see them slowly working together and it takes a good long time.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time to even like be friendly with each other. And
Yeah,
like she is so it's very Taming of the Shrew. And
it
she
is.
is
Yeah.
so vicious and biting. And
Mhm.
you get to see them both get kind of a comeuppance in it.
Yeah.
And they're kind of put on an even playing field with each other. And it's kind of when they do finally get together, like you feel the culmination of the passion and
Yeah.
the resolution of it, like him basically saying them both basically saying I trust you because
It's such
they
a good payoff.
yeah, yeah, because
And
you know
it's
she
like,
never
do
trusts
we even,
anybody.
we never even find out if they get like the gold medal, really. Like, it doesn't matter.
It
We're
doesn't
like, no, they win
matter.
something better. And we just trust that, like, if they didn't get it now, they'll get it next time. It's fine. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
no,
implied that they
it's
did, but we know that the real victory is the relationship, that we've like made
mm-hmm.
it to this point of intimacy and trust.
It's it's so good.
It's
Yeah,
delicious.
that's a great one. Okay. This one's from Elizabeth. She is asking me to discuss why mustaches are in a big way for 2025 romances. If you don't know, if you have never seen, me and one of my book besties, B in her books, are the patron saints of mustaches and romances, and we think everybody needs to have mustaches. They're awesome. Don't 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 miss out on the of the mustache. I know there's some people who have like, you know, their own personal traumas with them, but put that aside and look to the future and embrace the mustache.
I have a complicated relationship with mustaches because my dad and all of his brothers had them when I was growing up. So to me, I see a mustache and I think, yeah, there's my uncle. And so not really romantic. So it has to be like a really like it can't be just a cozy
See,
dad mustache. It has to be like
See,
like
my dad
a
had a
little bit.
mustache too. I put that aside. I focus on like the mustaches I see on other people. You
Yeah,
know, people always have facial hair. You can't hold it against them just
yeah.
because you were related to them at one point or
No,
another.
but
But
just
the pe
there's a whole category of mustache dudes that my brain goes, nope. It's like I have the same problem with a lot of redheaded dudes. I look at the redheaded dudes and my brain goes, yeah, they're your siblings or your cousin. And I'm like, oh yeah, no. Like, but yeah, but you know,
uh,
brunettes somehow work because like my dad and all his brothers are blonde. So like it's all very like,
okay.
you know, 80 70s Scandinavian mustache types as opposed to like there is a dude right now on Jeopardy Masters who's a
Hmm.
former Jeopardy champion from this season who's now like competing with all of the big champions. And he's got the most like 70s disco vibe that you've ever seen on Jeopardy. Like we're talking like 6-inch points on the collars, and he's got like the full
Nice.
mustache, and and like the patterned shirts under the three-piece suits. It's an absolute delight. I'm like, I am so glad that I get to watch this guy be smart at trivia because he's so much fun to watch, like aesthetically as well as like intellectually. So we're having a good time with that.
Nice. So see, there's a mustache for everybody.
There's a mustache for everybody.
Okay, so I've been racking my brain about what is a rom-com that does better with the same shop around the corner format as You Got Mail. And like I know there was one I saw recently, but like I completely forgot. But like in general, just watch Shop Around the Corner. Just watch Shop Around the Corner. They aren't they have the same kind of enemies to lover epistolary
Mhm.
thing going on without
Jimmy
somebody
Stewart's
just
wonderful.
yeah, without destroying somebody's mother's legacy. Like just watch that. That's always the easiest solution.
There was a recent book. I don't think it's out quite yet, but it may be later this month. A recent romance called The Witch of Wall Street. And it's by, I think, MJ Eklund. And it's the story of two witches in the city. And she's an
Ooh.
investment banker. And she has chaos magic that she's had to work very hard to kind of get under control. But it lets her do things like her powder compact transforms into a broom so she can skip like commuting, which is sounds amazing. Like I would love to fly around Manhattan, please and thank you. But she's working for this really sketchy investment firm, like very high up, very well compensated. She's paying her parents' mortgage, so this matters. And she's on the opposite side of a real estate deal from her high school rival, who's a witch whose magical gifts are he creates small miracles when they're needed. So, like, you know,
Oh.
jumping to the head of a line or getting that loan just when your business needs it to stay afloat, like little things like that. And he always used to kind of rescue her and bail her out in high school, and she's resented it ever since. But he's now the head of a nonprofit, and they're squaring off against the over this like particular building that's up for sale. And she knows her bank is gonna like sweep this building out from under them. They're gonna undercut the deal and like I think they're gonna like pay slightly more, but the nonprofit doesn't even know there's another offer on the table. And
Mm.
all of this stuff is happening, and they end up at the same gala. And she's like, well, okay, I feel not great about this, but I have to do it. It's my job. I've been put as lead on this project. I have to make it count. But at least I can sleep with him because he's really hot. And during the hookup, her chaos magic gets out of control and sends all of their magical possessions like flying around the city. And they have to go all around and like collect them through these magical perils of New York. And
That
at one point she gets poisoned. And they while they're like kind of like they get the antidote, but like while she's kind of like recovering and can't go to work, they sit around watching movies all day. And one of the films they watch is You've Got Mail. And she sits there and she goes, oh no, I am Joe Fox. Oh no, I'm the villain. And she has this full-on like revelation that she can't keep doing this. Something has to change.
I love that.
It was really
Oh,
cute.
I'll have to check that out. I love a good magic story. So that sounds like even more fun.
Yeah. And it's nice because it's all happening like in the city and it's not like, some little like gate-kept small town. It's like, no, this is just one of the other things that happens in the city and you'll hear stories about it, but most people don't really believe it's magic. It was really well done. It was great.
Nice. Okay, does anybody have any recommendations they want to share in the chat for books or movies they know like You've Got Mail that they think are better? I don't know. Well, we've been at it for an hour though. If there aren't any other questions.
If you were gonna,
Final thoughts?
yeah, Ellie, if you were gonna fix You've Got Mail, how would you do it?
Oh gosh. That's one of my favorite questions. If I were gonna fix You've Got Mail, my number one thing is that she would get to keep her bookstore and that he would help her keep her bookstore. That he not necessarily his money, but he would find a way to help her keep her bookstore. Um and live the both the big fancy bookstore and the little shop around the corner get to stay together in the big main streets of New York City. Because that's what we need in this world. And also like I would, see her actually care about the world around her a little bit more beyond the four walls that she works in every day.
Hmm.
Um, because just as much as he doesn't care about destroying things, she doesn't really care about what's outside of the bounds of her bookstore. So like
No.
I would like to see that. Um, and yeah, or if she does close her bookstore, I would like to see her like make the decision to close her bookstore and do something with that legacy, like not just sadly close it. I
Like
think if
open a writing store or like open a writing center for
or
kids or like
or start publishing or
yeah,
something like start go into publishing and like we see her make those forays into publishing, not just sitting home sick.
yeah,
And then emerging in the spring. Yeah, like I would like to see her make an actual decision with her life.
yeah,
And him making a decision to be a better person. Like seeing him if she chooses to close down the bookstore, then maybe he decides to help fund like some sort of kids writers program or something like that. Like
yeah,
I would just like to see them both be better humans,
yeah,
and that would go a long way for me. What about you?
yeah. I think the number one thing I would do, I would kind of play up the tensions in the relationship with her mom. Like, did she want to follow in her mother's footsteps? Has this been a source of stress? Is this
Mm-hmm.
actually a burden that she's felt or like an anchor that she's felt has been keeping her here? Like, maybe what she wants to do is like scout authors from around the world or something like that. Like, he could
So they
fund,
can get on his boat?
yeah, on his boat, like, which apparently never leaves the harbor because, anyways, but I think the first thing is to give her a way of connecting with the world that isn't just either her mom's bookstore or this new guy she's latched onto.
Mm-hmm.
It's
For sure.
very, I don't know, there's a weird way in which both of their writing voices match. And so it's like Nora Ephron is like writing love letters to Nora Ephron, and it's a little bit like there's some of that you can't quite get away with when you're a writer because you only have the one voice to write with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little bit too on the nose here, I think. They're both witty in exactly the same way. They're both like into the kind of, I'm very noticey about New York, but they never think about the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's that moment in the elevator that's really nice, and it's about everybody would change their life and how would they change it. And, we get these little glimpses that everybody's got a whole movie of their own happening around them.
Mm-hmm. But these two people are too self-absorbed
Yeah.
to even notice it.
To
And
really
you know what?
reflect on that. Yeah.
And that's fine if that is the story of the people that you're trying to tell, but like they are so insular in such a very specific way, though. They're
Mm.
self-absorbed in very specific ways rather than like in like a bigger way. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it totally does, because it's one thing if the story itself was focusing just on the small domestic tensions, but we keep bringing in politics that ends up being a point of contention in several different relationships. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about what would you do if you fall in love with, a fascist dictator, and like, how do you measure like um who you are against the person you're with? And we keep seeing, and I know we're supposed to laugh at Greg Kinnear, but the problem is a lot of the things he's saying aren't actually wrong, and they definitely read less as satire now than they did when the movie came out.
Mm-hmm. And I get why those are thought to be like just kind of like funny ha-has then, but like also I can see how I don't know, I feel like yeah, they're making fun of people who are introspective in any kind of way, shape, or form, but also they're not doing enough with the real estate that they have for shallow
Yeah.
people to
Yeah.
like to make that be a point, a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, they need, like, those people, the people they're mocking need to be worse in some way than they are. Like, the worst
Yeah.
thing you can say about the exes is one of them's a little silly and the other is a little bit like pompous.
Yeah. And I always tend to view Nora's work through like, her past life as, being a reporter and being stuck
Hmm.
in DC for as long as she was with her ex-husband. Like
Yeah,
I
that was
it
pretty
always
miserable from what I understand, right?
yeah, it was very miserable and like I always feel like a trace of that leaks into everything that she does. And
Hmm.
that feels like part of it, but like also she's just not making the case for like for the opposite of that or like she's
Yeah. What makes these people different?
yeah,
Why do they deserve better? Why do we expect better from these people?
exactly. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I don't I don't know if there's anything else. Definitely Joy Suzu on the cover. Oh, playing with fire. Yeah. Well, that's a fun book. Somebody recommended Playing with Fire as being a good book to read. It's an old Harlequin super romance category. That is
Tacoma-based engineers. That's 10
that
minutes for
is
me.
that's a great cover
That
too.
is.
And someone said the fiance farce has a B plot. That's to save a book story, fix it. Bookstore, fix it for this. Um, oh, somebody mentioned Only You being one of their favorite 90s rom-coms, and yes, I love that movie so much.
Ooh,
It's
that's another one. I think I saw the trailer, but I don't think I ever saw that one. I can see the
oh
poster
you
in my head to this day.
yeah, you've got to see that. It's a lot of lying, but I feel like
Yeah.
it makes up for it. And of course, The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy
Mm, yeah.
is you've got male retelling that everybody that is a good fix it. I think those are all the good ones. Yeah, but so thank you. It's been fun talking.
This has been really wonderful.
Thank you both for being willing to do this, and thank you to everyone who came and listened. Um, I will be sending out an email within the next week with a link to the recording, plus links to all of the movies and books that were recommended in the conversation and in the chat. So thank you, Olivia and Allie, and all of you. And I hope to see you all on August 9th for Bookstore Romance Day proper. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
You too.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.